Thank you, Mrs. Speaker. Mrs. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, sa lahat ng mga manggagawang nanonood, lalo na po sa ating mga dakilang educational workers, magandang hapon po. I rise today to bring to the attention of this august chamber issues pertaining to labor education and the Manual of Regulations for Private Higher Educational Institutions. Mrs. Speaker, as a fundamental right enshrined in our Constitution and globally, education occupies an unequivocally important role in our modern society. One of the greatest achievements of humanity is the availability of universal primary education, arguably not just a building block, but the very foundation of liberal democracy. No more, the theory goes, should a person's lot in life be predetermined by the circumstances of their birth. As the great education reformer and slavery abolitionist Horace Mann once said, education, beyond all other divides of human origin, is a great equalizer of conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery. Education is a great equalizer. It gives the ordinary citizen the knowledge of their options and the tools to make those options materialize into reality. Mahalaga ang edukasyon dahil ito ang nagpapalawak ng imahinasyon ng mga estudyante sa kung ano ang posible sa kanilang buhay. At ito rin po ang nagbibigay ng kaalaman upang maabot ang mga pangarap na ito. Walang hustisya kung walang edukasyon. That hallowed place education occupies requires great introspection from us as lawmakers and public officials. This issue should not be considered exclusively the domain of any one department or office. Instead, it is incumbent upon all citizens, and especially as public officials, to constantly consider education and its place in our democratic society. Dahil mahalaga ang edukasyon, mahalaga ang pagbusisi nito, lalo na ng mga pinuno ng ating lipunan. In line of this, Mr. Speaker, Kamanggagawa Partylist, in our goal to represent the aspirations and interests of workers and ordinary Filipinos, humbly submit for the consideration of this House intertwined issues that interfere in the dynamic relationship between labor and education. Nang mapagserbisyohan po natin ang mga manggagawa at ordinaryong Pilipino, naway ating mapag-isipan. Before I move on, Mr. Speaker, I invite us to pause and consider what makes a complete education. In school, we learn mathematical equations and dates of historical events. We learn grammar and scientific principles. These are all components of a holistic education meant to mold students into future citizens. We aim to prepare students for a world where they will work, contribute, and earn a living. As citizens and future workers, mathematics equips us with the literacy needed to engage in the economic system. Values education grounds us and helps us to be kind and honest people. Language arts teaches us how to communicate and understand each other better. But where do we turn to if our bosses are mistreating or underpaying us? At what point are we supposed to learn how to navigate the complicated technicalities of labor, our rights to self-organize, and our right to security of tenure? If education aims to equip us to be capable citizens and workers, it fails us in the latter regard. Lahat ng elemento para sa masunuring manggagawa, kumpleto. Kahit maling-mali na ang mga employer. At present, working in the Philippines translates to the daily struggle to exercise the most fundamental rights of workers and unions amidst endemic harassment, violence, and death. In the Philippines, workers are demanding fair wages as employers continue to ignore or violate collective bargaining agreements. Amid rising living costs, many struggle to afford basic necessities while their rights are routinely disregarded. Kaya't hindi po nakapagtataka, Mr. Speaker, mga kasama ko sa bulwagang ito, na mismong mga international monitors ay nagpapahayag ng pag-aalala sa kalagayan ng ating bansa. The Labor Rights Index, published by the Amsterdam-based organizations Wage Indicator and the Center for Labor Research, reflects this reality. Our country's score fell from 70.5 in 2022 to 68 in 2024. This reflects a worsening situation, an erosion of the very rights that empower our workforce. While our country has been praised for its legal framework and ratifying numerous ILO conventions, the gap between legislation and implementation remains vast. Laws without enforcement do little to protect our labor force from unsafe conditions, unreasonable hours, or inadequate parental leave. Of 52.42 million Filipinos engaged in the Philippine labor force as of June 2025, a mere 12.62% or 6.62 million workers are engaged in registered labor organizations. A blanket term which covers private sector unions, public sector employees organizations, and workers associations. In the absence of data about worker consciousness, this is our imperfect metric. Wala pong malinaw na datos, Mr. Speaker, kung ilan sa mga manggagawa ang tunay na may kamalayan at kaalaman sa mga batayang karapatang natatamasa dapat nila. In such a context, educating workers of their rights becomes imperative rather than voluntary. Without it, workers are left defenseless against abuse and exploitation. Labor laws, after all, can only be put into practice when they are internalized by workers. This dire situation, Mr. Speaker, underscores the urgent necessity for a comprehensive and progressive labor education program. Such a program must go beyond mere legal compliance. It must proactively empower workers, unionists, and advocates through continuous education on their rights, social safety nets, and the importance of collective action. Students must learn their basic rights as workers, how to negotiate for higher wages, mechanisms for redress, and how the state can protect them. Education is the key to fostering a culture of respect for labor rights, one where workers are not just aware of their privileges, but driven to defend and elevate them. It is clear and paramount, Mr. Speaker, that labor education must be in our curricula. Indeed, this was recognized in the passage of Republic Act 1151, or the Labor Education Act 4 years ago. Signed into law on May 27, 2021, the Labor Education Act was supposed to be a ray of hope in capacitating, upskilling, and empowering students as future participants in the labor market, institutionalizing labor rights education into formal education. Until now, however, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, kahit 4 na taon na po ang nakalipas, labor education has not been integrated into the tertiary education curriculum. Such a delay has a profound consequences. Every worker passing through tertiary education who finds themselves unable to assert their rights in the workplace represents a failure of the state. What use do we have for labor rights if knowledge about them is so hard to reach? Aanhin mo ang mga batas na nakatago o proteksyong mistulang sikreto. This is an injustice that cannot remain overlooked. It highlights the urgent and undeniable need for a comprehensive, robust, and accessible labor education program, one that elevates the consciousness of every worker. The state, Mr. Speaker, must fulfill its duty to promote workers' rights, equip them with confidence, and amplify their voices so that their rights are not just mere words on paper, but living, tangible protections. Education is the great equalizer, one that addresses the asymmetry of power between employer and employee by opening the latter's consciousness. The other component of labor and education is protecting our educators, who themselves are workers as well. If our educators' welfare is not guaranteed, we leave the future of our students to mere chance. Much has been said about the poor state of educators' welfare in this country. But today, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, I bring to your attention the case of Professor Jose Mario de Vega, Associate Professor at National University. A professor of philosophy for more than 20 years, he dutifully served National University for longer than 2.5 years, earning the status of probationary full-time employee. After 8 terms, take note of that, after 8 terms of work, Mr. Speaker, his tenure was unceremoniously ended when he was informed that he reached the end of his contract. 2.5 years. This is 5 times longer than the 6-month probationary period set in the labor code, after which a worker must be regularized. Prof. De Vega is not an isolated case, Mr. Speaker. How can we allow our teachers who perform such a crucial function in our society be treated so poorly? Much of this abuse can be attributed to a document propagated by the Commission on Higher Education called the Manual of Regulations for Private Higher Education, or MORPHE for short, where the labor code says 6-month probationary period, MORPHE says 3 years for our teachers. This document has been widely condemned for practically enabling contractualization and failing to set in place due process and clear, specific, measurable job standards. Mga guro na po mismo ang nagsasabi, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. It is a travesty that an implementing document by a line agency could override a constitutional guarantee. Natalo ang pangako ng saligang batas ng isang ahensyang hindi nakikinig, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, our teachers' voices can no longer be silenced. We must act in their protection. If education is a great equalizer, failing our educators is akin to moral hypocrisy. Teachers cannot persuade us of the value of our future if their present conditions are unlivable. We at the Kamanggagawa Partylist hope to have impressed upon this House why labor and education necessarily have to work in tandem. And so in tandem, their failure shall also be. Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, we are systematically failing our students, and we are systematically failing our educators. The same system which debases our educators' rights is failing to educate future workers about the same rights. Things don't have to be this way, Mr. Speaker. We as members of the legislature are equipped with the privilege of knowing that we can change our country's circumstances. In the following days, Mr. Speaker, Kamanggagawa Partylist will file a resolution which I hope distinguished colleagues will support. This resolution, Mr. Speaker, calls for an investigation into the Manual of Regulations of Private Higher Education Institutions. We hope to collaborate with colleagues and relevant agencies to implement Republic Act 1151 and seriously put labor education back on the table and even expand it. And beyond these measures, looking forward, we hope to ensure that we treat the honorable profession of teaching with the dignity and privilege it deserves. We hope that each ordinary Filipino graduates from tertiary education as capable and independent citizens and workers, not just cogs of a machine. Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, we rise today to remind us of what we ought not to take for granted. Ipagtanggol po natin ang ating mga guro, ang mga manggagawa ng ngayon at ang mga estudyante ang manggagawa ng kinabukasan. Our rights guarantee equality before the law, and our laws ought to bring our society toward equality. Education is a great equalizer. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues.
Tara na, kamanggagawa.